me tell you guys right now what really makes this sad. What really makes this whole thing sad, weak, and pathetic is that ESPN is trying to turn this into an E60 episode or a 30 for 30, whichever one you might want to call it. I just don't see how the hell it is that somebody who is 68 years old, who is known to be a dirty football player, I don't see how it is that that player should be getting notoriety for confronting another player who is suffering from Parkinson's disease at a collectibles event is really noteworthy, outside the fact that it teaches men to hold grudges well late into their life, which, to tell you the truth, is quite effeminate.
Bull rushing. I don't know if you saw the clip came out of Mark Gastineau kind of confronting Brett Favre, saying he took a fall, I guess, giving Michael Strahan his sack record. Is this something that you pass rushers do? Are you like, verbally assaulting people that you feel like gave up easy sacks to other people?
And before you answer that question, because we have not chatted about this yet on the program, we should give full context for the situation. Mark Gastineau was at a collectibles or an autograph session that wasn't open to the public. It seemed to be behind the scenes. And he was
Brett. And then the representative at that point ushers
so let me ask you a question. So I don't, Mark Gastineau is dealing with some medical issues, is he not?
It has to be.
Right. So I can't stand the guy. The guy was a dirty, cheap shot and son of a bitch, as far as I'm concerned. And, I know this because he was on the elevator in the West and in Cincinnati telling my buddies who are there to watch the game that you tell your boy Boomer to call an ambulance because he's going down. And he was trying to cheap shot me the whole damn game. So screw him. That's what I say.
Yeah.
I'm
going to get my sack back. I'm going to get my sack back, dude.
You probably would hurt me.
Well, I don't care. You hurt me. You hurt me. You hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
You really hurt me. You hurt me, Brett.
We got to get back to this, Brett. I'm sorry.
I'm going to be talking in this video about what happened in 2001, why it's BS to continue to hold the grudge, and also to go on top of that, we will also be talking about Mark Gastineau as a player and why it is that people are, let's just say, not sympathetic to him. So stick around for the full bit, all right? Okay, you guys obviously saw in that montage there the actual segment, the clip of Mark Gastineau, Brett Favre. We want to talk about this the entire week, and I finally got around to it here at the end out Friday. But also to go on top of that, you also saw a little bit from Pat McAfee show, and you also saw a little bit from Boomer and Gio, because Boomer Esiason actually played against Mark Gastineau. So what are we talking about here? Well, back in 2001, I want to say it was week 15. The Packers and the Giants. Maybe in week 17. It's been a while. My memory's a little bit hazy on this right here, too. The Packers and the Giants were obviously playing a football game to close out the year, and Michael Strahan was aiming for the single-season sack record. A sack record of which that Mark Gastineau, who already held the single-season sack record, was on hand to attend. And as, of course, Brett decided to, you guys can obviously see it here in the B-roll footage, and we'll be playing more of it here in a second. He decided to slide, basically lay down. Brett would go to his Facebook page and, of course, also to Twitter, his Twitter account, and he would post a message explaining exactly what happened. It was late in the season. I know this because, obviously, as a Packers fan who grew up watching Brett Favre and then eventually Aaron Rodgers and now Jordan Love, I obviously know Brett's play styles. One of the reasons why is that so many people love Brett Favre, and, of course, there are some things to criticize Brett on here soon, which we'll get to in a second. But the thing is this right here. Brett had a certain way he played. It was a certain fun style. But, of course, on that day, he chose to help his friend out, Mr. Strahan, towards the end of the game in what would be a meaningless play because the game, according to Favre, was essentially already over with. They had a 34-25 lead. They were heading to the 2-minute warning. It just didn't look very, very good for the Giants. There wasn't much of a chance of them coming back. It was getting pretty grim. So Brett figured he would slide and basically let Mr. Strahan have the record. By the way, Michael Strahan that offseason would get called out by Warren Sapp, who's also a close personal friend with Brett and was a close personal friend with Brett even at that time. Clip not provided, but I'll try to link as much in the description box as I can about Warren Sapp calling out Michael Strahan, saying, "You didn't really break the record. My boy simply laid down for you." Now, I can already hear somebody saying that you're missing the great big giant point here, which is Mark Gastineau missing out on some money. And given the fact that Mark Gastineau has recently been diagnosed with dementia and he's got a lot of other health problems going on, you would think that maybe it's understandable. But is it really? Is it really understandable to hold a grudge for over 20 years against an ex-player that is also suffering from multiple concussions, and of course also to go on top of that, Brett's also suffering from Parkinson's disease? Is it really truly a good idea is it really truly a good idea to tell everybody that you found Jesus and then turn right back around after you said you found Jesus and then do this? Guys, there are many, 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 many things in Christianity, but confronting people is not exactly something that's required in said way of life. Just saying. But here's the thing. I opened this video the way I opened it because the truth is this right here. It's pretty obvious what ESPN is doing. They're trying to do whatever they can to boost E60 and 30 for 30, the shows that they have. And so much, and you know that they're doing this because obviously it would be placed on ESPN during the Pat McAfee show. Now, Pat McAfee covers his own stuff. He basically covers the league however he wants. But still, at the same time, you kind of know that this right here is what they're doing, especially given the fact that they've already started with the E60, 30 for 30 stuff, the way they've started editing this stuff. You already know it's going to become a story. But still, though, the Pat McAfee show. Obviously, it's news. Obviously, you're going to cover it. And, of course, J.J. Watt points out the real reason why Gastineau probably did this, which isn't exactly a Christian thing to do, but let's get into it.
The way the story is told is almost like Brett took the snap, went in front of Strahan, lays down and just let Strahan kind of tap him. Mm-hmm. That appeared to be a situation where Strahan was going to sack Brett Favre, whether Brett Favre, who never went down or not. I don't think they could have handled a turnover. I think the game was over. But I think Strahan is going to end up tackling Brett Favre there regardless. I don't know the rest of the game. I don't know how it was going. But Gastineau obviously.
Come on.
What do you think,
man.
Jake? What do you think, Jake?
Okay, Pat. Well, let me just go ahead and kind of refill you in. That season for the Packers, that was the first season that they had off of missing the playoffs. They missed the playoffs in 99 and 2000. Ray Rhodes was the coach in 1999 and 2000. The head coach was Mike Sherman. Sherman was the coach of the 2001 season, but as well. But the Packers would end up finishing the year 12-4. Now, they would finish 12-4, but not the divisional champion. The Bears actually won the division that year, and it was the end of the year. It was playoffs. And I do agree with you. I think that Strahan would have gotten a hold of Brett anyway. So more than likely what happened was that Brett, like he said, called out of a run. He claims that he thought he could get somebody wide open, rolled out, and boom. Next thing you know, Strahan was right there in his face, so he went ahead and went down. Now, if you want to complain with anything, of course, if Mark Gastineau wants to complain to somebody out there about somebody hurting him, then maybe what he should do is complain to the NFL or how they ruled sacks back in those days. Maybe he should complain to that. Because oftentimes, as a fan, I'll sit there and I'll look at a play and say, yeah, that right there wasn't really and truly a sack. Old boy went down. Maybe they should create a special category for that. I don't know. But still, at the same time, though, if you want to get pissed off with somebody, I don't think Brett's the guy to get pissed off with there, Mark. Which, of course, brings the conversation back to Mark. So let's get to that.
He all but said, I knew what was going on here. And it's any defensive lineman who's been anywhere remotely close to the sack record or who's had those thoughts or conversations knows. I mean, that was set up.
Yeah.
Like that's we all know that.
You kind of go about mending fences if you're either side there.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything you do now. I'm more shocked that that's the first time that they've met since that. I mean, it's been 20-something years now since that happened. So I'm shocked that that's the first conversation that they've had about it. But I don't think that players have problems with people breaking the records. At least I don't think you should, because you broke somebody else's record, and that's just the game goes on, and you should be happy for the person breaking your record because you know how difficult, you know how hard that can be. From the other standpoint, the business side, some of the stuff Brett was saying, like I can understand that. I mean, there's definitely things that coming along with being.
Okay, what J.J. Watt said I think is 100% correct. I think that Gastineau, of course, is upset mostly about the fact that he's missing out money as the all-time sack leader in a single season. Collectibles, stuff like that. But still at the same time, man, you play in the NFL, you should have the money. Gastineau only played in the NFL for 9 seasons from 1979 to 1988, or at least that was his time with the Jets. That was definitely the most meaningful portion of his NFL career. And Mark Gastineau had a certain personality or a certain reputation around the league, and of course that reputation is what Boomer Esiason hinted at the very beginning of the video. He, for the most part, was in fact very, very much an asshole. I'm not saying that to kick Mark Gastineau. I'm not saying that to kick him when he's down. If anything, I'm actually criticizing ESPN a lot more than Gastineau because they're obviously taking somebody who's going through some serious issues. He's got dementia. He's got other health problems. And they're setting this entire thing up, going after another man who's got health problems because obviously the left-leaning side of their audience needs some blood. They obviously need pound of flesh for pound of flesh. They obviously need somebody to cheer against. And that person in this case was obviously Brett Favre. Brett's got the whole scandal out there where he supposedly took a bunch of money, which he did, but of course he also paid it back. And Brett's become somewhat of a villain. Brett has also filed a couple of frivolous lawsuits against Pat McAfee and also Shannon Sharpe. I want to say that those lawsuits have been dropped, or at least the one against Pat McAfee has been. There wasn't really much of a case to begin with, but still, though, at the same time, though, I'm pretty sure that ESPN is looking at him and saying, you're kind of the villain. Also, to go on top of that, Favre is making several appearances on Jason Whitlock's show, and not to mention Warren Sapp and other ex-players, players that tend to be a little bit more on the conservative side of the aisle when it comes to politics. Now, the reason why I decided to make this was to show you guys exactly how scummy our media is, but also to point out the fact that Mark Gastineau is not somebody who needs to be holding grudges, given his own playing career. Before we get back to the Boomer and Geo segment, I want to go ahead and say this, all right? Gastineau, if I haven't already said it again, claims he got saved, became a Christian recently. Gastineau also has dementia. Gastineau is also suffering from other health-related issues. He doesn't have much time on this earth left. And to go on top of that, he has a reputation for being a dirty player. The 1980s, if I didn't say this already, if I haven't said this in other videos, the 1980s was a special time in NFL history. To be considered to be a dirty player in the 1980s, that takes a special type of assholery. Let me explain. One of the greatest safeties of all time, Ronnie Lott, had his finger literally ripped off during a game and they had to reattach it. That's how dirty the sport was. Lyle Alzado took his helmet off and actually swung it at another player. What happened to Joe Theismann was always considered to be a dirty hit, even though Lawrence Taylor clearly was jumping up in the air, screaming and hollering, "I think I killed him, get out here quick." The sport was much, much different. It was not as safe. Boomer Esiason, of course, being a quarterback in the 1980s of the Cincinnati Bengals, would obviously know this. And if you were considered to be a dirty player, like Gastineau was, yeah, it took a special type of assholery in that time, as he explains.
One down, and he was trying to cheap shot me the whole damn game. So screw him. That's what I say.
Yeah.
And I knew he would be pissed because that's exactly what it looked like for Michael Strahan and Brett Favre. It looked exactly like that. So I understand why he's pissed, but screw him. I don't care.
Yeah. Well, that was
Okay.
Cheap shot. I'm telling
dirty,
you.
cheap shot, and son of a bitch.
He's like your buddy out there in Minnesota. The same way.
Hall of Famer John Randall.
Yeah,
Is that what you're
Hall of
talking about?
Famer, yes, exactly.
But I believe Mark has found Christ since then. So
Who?
I think Mr. Gastineau has found Jesus.
He's found Christ
since that time. So, you know.
Well, he hasn't repented for his sins regarding me, a fellow human being.
Well,
let me step in just for a quick second before I let Boomer finish. You play the game hard. You play the game to win. Sometimes you play the game a little bit dirtier than others. It's more forgivable to forgive somebody who laid a dirty hit on you if they basically say, yeah, I laid a dirty hit on you, my bad, hey, look, it is what it is, are you okay? It's a little bit easier to forgive them after the fact, maybe not at that point in time. Gastineau was not exactly a person known, though, to apologize or say, hey, look, man, that was kind of messed up. No. Gastineau was known to be an extremely selfish player, an extremely dirty player. His teammates hated him. And also to go on top of that, he also had this propensity to suck when it comes to playing against the run, which a lot of people question if he did that on purpose simply because he was only there for one thing and one thing only, sacks. It's kind of like the cornerback that you put out there who's not designed to hit other wide receivers. He's designed to pick passes off. I mean, you could say that that's just probably close to the same thing, even though it's really not the same thing because there are a lot of corners out there who just, they would get ran the hell over by most wide receivers. But still at the same time, this right here wasn't the same case. Gastineau was no specialty case in that sense. He was no quarterback specialist. Gastineau simply would just pin his ears back and go straight for the quarterback on every single play. And oftentimes it left his teammates high and dry, especially when it comes to coverage and protecting against the run. But oftentimes we tend to not look at that when we produce faux documentary pieces for E60 or 30 for 30. By the way, Gastineau is not somebody that you can market anyway, so I have no idea why ESPN is doing it unless maybe they're trying to give some type of blood to the liberal side of their audience. But like I said, speculation is speculation. But even though I think that there's what the hell's going on, I can't really truly prove it. But let's finish the segment out.
There is I always thought there was a brotherhood, and yes, you got to hit the guy, you got to try to intimidate the guy. I'm not against any of that, as long as it's within the rules and you're not trying to hurt somebody. Now, I don't know how you could say a defensive player when they're delivering a shot is not trying to hurt somebody. I mean, they have to play that way. I understand, but he knew what he was doing, and I saw it on film the week before against the Buffalo Bills.
All right, a couple of things on this. One, last year, if you remember, we were doing an event with Joe Klecko and Tracy Wolfson.
I have no problem with Joe. I love Joe Klecko. Love Marty Lyons.
Yeah.
All of those guys, those guys, I didn't play a lot against those guys.
Yeah.
But when I did, it wasn't, I never felt like, I knew that they were tough, and I knew that they were trying to set the tone, and they're trying to intimidate, and of course, that's what they're supposed to do.
Yeah.
This guy was dirty. And if you ask those guys on the side, they'll tell you this guy was a loner.
Yeah.
It was all about him, not about them and the sack exchange. It was all about him.
Gastineau and Favre had this thing at this card exchange, but he's like, don't say anything about it right now because I don't know how many people know about it.
Yeah, and I told if I remember, I think I told Joe, I said, I'm not surprised that Gastineau would be pissed off at that.
Yeah.
And I remember covering that and how Brett Favre annoyed his own offensive lineman by allowing that to happen. If I did that and, Anthony Munoz or Max Montoya or Joe Walter or Bruce Gazurski, Dave Remington, any of those guys out there, and I gave up a sack, they'd be so pissed off at me, it wouldn't be funny. It would be like they'd be.
Okay, now you guys obviously seen that. You guys obviously heard that there. But here's something else I want to say before I close this video, because it's very, very effeminate to hold on to grudges this long, especially given the fact that Gastineau was given all the honors to show up there and actually be on the sidelines, where he would eventually hug Michael Strahan's neck and basically congratulate him, which always makes me wonder why it is he's holding a grudge now. It's like I said, it's probably the mental illness, probably the dementia, probably all the other health issues. Shame on you, ESPN, for taking advantage of an old man. Of course, he probably needed the money. But still, at the same time, to hold a grudge like this, to go through with this, I mean, dude, come on, man. You could have found other ways to make, that's right. He was an asshole. So probably people don't want to work with him. Look, Gastineau was known to be one hell of a pass rusher. He wasn't good on the run, but he was also known to stiff his own players. I don't think I need to go through every single account of Mark Gastineau and how bad he was hated amongst his own. But still, though, this right here just shows you exactly how effeminate of a society that we have. Look, have you ever wondered why it is that men can get into fist fights and then shake hands with one another, have a beer with one another afterwards? It's because they know the deed is done. Only women, only the ladies hold grudges for this long. And for a man to hold a grudge like this for this long and then be stupid enough to be taking advantage of a left-wing news outlet only tells me that we really and truly are teaching men the wrong thing. Gastineau's no role model. Gastineau's nobody to prop up. All you got to do is look at the guy's past. He's everything you would want your young players to not become. But still, at the same time, though, it is interesting to me to see exactly how low ESPN will go when it comes to trying to boost their failing shows. Shows that, by the way, are now currently only being streamed on Disney, Amazon, and, of course, Netflix, because they can't put them on network TV because nobody watches them. With that right there being said, guys, tell me what you think in the comments section. I would love to hear what you guys have got to say. Please hit the like button, subscribe, share the video, sign off in the comments, and I'll see you guys later.